Book.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Read This Book podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Duncan.
And I am your other host, Matthew Meadows. Stephen, I'm glad you got it right this time.
Yeah, me too. We are back in the saddle.
Back in the saddle. I was going to get copyright.
Is that an
Copyright.
actual song?
Yeah. Back in this. Yeah. Back in the saddle again. You know that one?
Yeah, that didn't ring any bells for me.
Really?
Maybe I would know it if I heard
Fascinating.
the song, but that didn't do it for me.
Alexa, play Back in the Saddle or something. We'll talk after.
Okay.
We'll circle back to this.
Sidebar.
As per my last email.
Yeah.
Oof, sorry.
I believe you were CC'd on.
Yeah.
No, chills.
You've replied all once again.
Yes.
Oh boy. Sorry, everybody.
Anyhow.
Hey man.
Hi.
Oh, how are you?
I'm good. I'm all right.
Oh man, I'm all right too.
That's good.
We missed last week. We
did.
Well, so I think we're now on a new schedule
Yeah.
where it's this Wednesday instead of
Yes.
last Wednesday.
Yes.
We meant to do that on
Yeah.
purpose.
I fell ill.
I flew ill.
You flew ill?
I fell ill as well.
I think we both flew ill into the weekend
Yeah.
when we were going to do it. And then
Yeah.
by the time we got around to Monday or Tuesday, I
Yeah.
was still
Yeah.
falling.
I was mostly recovered by then. Dude, I don't know what it is. When I got back from vacation and then I started school and a new job, and then the second like I had a day off.
Yeah.
Done. Coughing, sneezing.
I thought you meant like coffin as in like ugh.
Oh no. Well, you could have fooled me. I almost was maybe in there. I was it was not a great time for me. But then I texted you and I was like, man, I feel like I'm getting sick so many times this year. And you were like, yeah, no, I'm sick too.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm sick.
Literally.
Beautiful. Yeah, but we're back. It's before. Wait, when did the last episode come out?
2 weeks ago.
I was not.
You were out of the country.
I was out of the country.
You were away from the nation.
Yeah, so I was out of the country. I was preparing to leave last time.
Mm-hmm.
I left, and shockingly, I came back.
He did.
Which if I had my druthers,
it was shocking.
Yeah,
you were gone forever.
I was gone for a really
It was
long
a
time,
long
dude.
time.
I was gone for I think 14 days.
Like you just kept posting pictures.
Yeah.
Every single day.
I couldn't help it.
When is he going to leave?
Yeah.
That godforsaken place.
Yeah. Again, if I had my druthers, you never would have seen me again.
Yeah,
in person.
And the thing is, like, you
Actually,
meet people on vacation. I've never even heard of this Druthers character. So, I don't know if that's some sort of Danish name.
That's really funny.
Mr. Druthers.
Have you made that joke before?
No.
Because that's really
No.
good. You should keep that.
That was just off the dome.
You should really keep that one. That was good. That was really funny. I was gonna say I would come back though for like your daughter's wedding or something.
Jeez.
And like that.
That's gonna be a minute.
I know. But I've been busy, man. I got stuff going on.
You're hanging out with Druthers.
Yeah, me and Druthers got this business idea. It's awesome. I'll tell you about it in 25 years.
Yes, perfect.
What's been going on since I've seen you last?
I feel like
Working?
Yeah, just working, and my wife and I are gearing up to relaunch our annual spooky season podcast. Hi, we're the Duncans.
Yeah, and it's very good, and you should follow them on Instagram.
Please do, and subscribe to that podcast too if you want. It's a pretty low commitment because you only have to pay attention one time a year. So
yeah, are you guys doing? How many episodes are you doing?
6. Yep.
Okay.
We're doing the House on Haunted Hill. No, the Haunting of
Hill House is what that book is called.
My bad. House on
the
Haunted
House
Hill.
on Haunted Hill is
an
something else.
adaptation loosely based on that book starring Vincent Price.
Really?
Yes.
That's
why I was confused.
That's like a ripoff. That's blatantly like the same.
Yes.
Okay.
But I was thinking about that movie earlier today.
And you're like,
because-
wow, that's really similar to the name.
Yeah, and it's more similar in some ways, I think, than even the modern Netflix show adaptation.
I like the Netflix show.
I did too. We watched that together on a
Mhm.
vacation.
Sure did.
In Virginia.
Yep, sure
Yeah,
did.
Good times.
Good times.
Good
Weird
times.
idea to watch.
A strange
this-
idea.
The scariest thing I've ever seen in a
isolated
haunted
farmhouse.
in
Yeah.
Virginia. West Virginia.
Virginia.
Mountain Mama.
Take me home. Country road. Yeah, but we did.
Yeah.
So that's our background with that.
Yeah.
And if you liked that minute and a half of us talking about that book and show, then check out Hi, We're the Duncans. That's at Hi, We're the Duncans.
It's my second favorite book podcast.
Yeah, behind.
Bro, read this book.
Woo! I was trying to think of another book podcast and I couldn't
Yeah.
because we're the best.
We are.
We're in the top 1,000 book podcasts.
I gotta say something. I hope that that's true.
I think it is.
It's probably true.
Yeah.
I'll have to check our stats.
Yeah.
Well, most podcasts never make it past like 8 episodes.
And we're at 28.
Yeah.
28.
30's coming up.
30's
The big
coming up.
3-0.
The big 3-0.
Man. But yeah, since I've been back, I started grad school, which has been good. I'm enjoying it. A lot of reading for grad school.
Yeah.
So many papers to read. So that's kind of taken away my desire to read books for a little bit. But I'm hoping that once I get kind of into the swing of it, I'll be more apt to take like my free time and do that instead of like play video games or something.
Right.
That's been good. So we need to talk about something.
Topic time.
Topic time. There's a show on Amazon Prime called Rings of Power. Are you familiar with this?
Rop?
Yeah, Rob.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Let me say, the first season
Yes.
I thought was okay.
Yeah.
I had some pretty big problems with it. Namely, I thought the dialogue and the pacing and the costumes
Rough.
were rough. And I was pretty vocal about that, not like on like Bookstagram or the podcast or anything, but just in talking to people about it.
Yeah.
And there was some stuff that like didn't seem like it fit. And so when season 2, I honestly forgot season 2 was coming out.
I did too.
So I didn't know that it was coming out until the day that it came out, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And so when it came out, I binged the first 3 episodes in one night. I gotta say, I am pleasantly surprised with the first half, and I watched episode 4, the first half of season 2. I think a lot of the issues that season 1 had are pretty well adjusted here in season 2.
Yeah.
I really, and I think the dialogue and the pacing are 2 of the most improved pieces. Because there's, and I don't want to spoil anything, so I don't want to talk about the plot at all.
Yeah.
But there are some moments that really, and that have never been adapted before, and so it just is so cool to see them happen in real time.
Yeah.
And so you always have people who don't like things, and that's fine. As long as there's an actual good argument for not liking it,
For sure.
I'm cool with that. There has been some like discourse around the show that's like, oh, just cancel it already. This is the worst show. This is garbage. Just cancel it.
Yeah.
And I think that is just not true.
There have been so many. So I didn't see any like reaction videos or even like titles to reviews and reaction videos until after I had watched, I think, just the first episode. So we watched the first one, and then the second 2 a few nights later, and then the fourth one. And so having just watched the first episode of it, and I saw the names of some of these reaction videos, I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Did it just tank in the next 2 episodes after
Yeah.
this first one? Because like it was fine. It was pretty solid.
Yeah.
Like I remember watching the first couple episodes of the first season and being like, I really want to like this, but this is a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about this. This time around, I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, this is running like a good, well-paced, well-done show.
Yeah.
Like,
And
regardless of even what's in it at that point.
Yeah.
Just like, this is a good, well-made show now.
I think the thing that gets me is that it is an adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like, all right, we're taking everything and we're doing it exactly as it's written. And like being frustrated with that, I think you can be frustrated with that and be like, I just don't like it.
Yeah.
But being like, oh, cancel the show.
Right.
Cancel this garbage.
This is garbage.
Yeah. And it's like,
this is a dumpster fire.
And I think like some stuff I'm seeing is just like a little, to me at least, a bit of a stretching of the truth when it comes to how much they feel like they're deviating from Tolkien's work.
Yeah.
I don't think that, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's like canon, 100% accurate.
Right.
Because it's not supposed to be. It's an adaptation.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal to me. But also, it is not this like insane departure from the source material that people are saying it is. And in my opinion, let me just preface that again. Like, this is just how I feel about the show.
Our whole show is our opinions.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
It's cool.
Yeah, but it's just like I just don't want. I don't want people to not watch it because they get on Instagram and read the comments.
Right.
Because
don't think it's worth their time.
Because it's really only on Instagram and Facebook that I'm seeing a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, Nerd of the Rings, my favorite YouTube channel on the face of the planet. He is Matt from Nerd of the Rings is the best Lord of the Rings YouTube channel. He's been doing breakdowns of the shows, and people in the comments are like, "This is generally pretty good."
Yeah.
And those are the people that I trust.
Yeah.
Like, and those are the people that I agree with, not Joe Schmo on Facebook. But like, I will say, episode 4 I think is the weakest of the 4.
Mm-hmm.
But the first 3, great.
Yeah.
Good. I don't want to say they're great.
Yeah.
There are great moments in them.
And I think even a lot of the stuff that people are talking about, like, oh, this is so not Tolkien, or this is so like such a departure from source material and whatnot. A lot of it is stuff that multiple versions of were written. Like you had a really good example of like the origin of orcs, of which there are like 6.
There are 6 possible origins of orcs, and there's this comment, and I don't want to get too into it because it's gonna get me fired up. Somebody was like, "How can you humanize orcs?" And literally one of the things that Tolkien wrote, and honestly, I think that towards the end of his life, this is kind of where he like leaned, was that orcs were just humans who had fallen under extreme corruption. And they do multiply as children of Ilúvatar, elves, men, and have babies and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, there was just this comment of like, how do you humanize orcs? And I just like, it made me so unnecessarily upset that I went on this whole like diatribe, like, to on my close friend's Instagram story. And nowhere else, because I don't care that much. But I was just like, if you're gonna say something is egregiously like wrong with the story, just know that people are gonna look up what you say.
Yeah.
And they're gonna want to know if you're being factual, and when you're not, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
It is so obvious that you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And
there's been a lot of things like that. Just little things that people will nitpick on.
Yeah.
It's like, well, actually, if you read, like, there's a reason that they did that.
Yeah. And now I will say, there are things in the plot that are definitely not in Tolkien's writing.
Yeah.
Because it is an adaptation, and that is okay.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best parts of the show, not anywhere in Tolkien's writing, Arondir.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, especially this season.
Yeah, so cool. And we're getting to see Isildur in like a whole new way, which is really cool. And I just like, I understand that people want faithful adaptations of things.
Yeah.
But you got to understand that Amazon has not made the show for lore nerds. You know,
right.
like generally, I feel like the show is made for the casual enjoyer,
Yes,
and that's fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
I am enjoying the show,
Mm-hmm.
and I hope that everybody else enjoys the show, and I would never want them to cancel the show because of the people who don't enjoy it.
Yeah, I would rather there be a decent adaptation than no adaptation at all.
And honestly, who cares?
Yeah.
You know,
there's that.
like there are so many other things that
we already got a good adaptation of the most important part.
Yeah.
Which is the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah. Okay, wait. Have you seen the trailer for the War of the Rohirrim?
Yeah, it looks
I'm
kinda
so
cool.
excited.
Yeah.
That looks awesome.
It looks pretty cool.
That looks so sick. I'm so excited to have an animated Lord of the Rings movie made like in the present day.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Plus I love Rohan.
Yeah.
And their whole thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm very, very excited to see how that goes. Not a huge anime guy.
Me neither.
But
I will for that.
I will be. It's going to be in theaters, I think.
Yes.
I will be there opening day.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And you will be too. I bought you a ticket.
Oh, perfect.
I haven't yet, but I will. But yeah, I don't know, man. Again, we say this all the time. This is like my favorite thing to say in the world. If you enjoy it, great. If it's something that you like, that's awesome. Continue to do that and do not let other people tell you to not enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because that is just not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
And if you're on the fence about it, watch Rop. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Get past season 1.
Yeah.
It's not that bad, but it's like, there are parts of it that are like, ugh.
You could watch a recap.
Yeah. You can watch a recap. Nerd of the Rings. Matt from Nerd of the Rings has a really great one. I will say, if there is one thing that will ruin season 2 for me, and you know exactly what it is, if there's a specific thing that happens, I am so sold on a theory that I have that if it's not true, I will boycott.
You will riot.
Yeah, I will say cancel the show.
Yeah, this is garbage.
No, I won't say that ever about anything probably. But there's one thing, and I'm not going to talk about it, but. If it were to happen, I would stop watching the show.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
But yeah, man, I don't know. It's just been I just wanted to talk about it because it seems like people are making it such a big deal when it really just isn't. And if you disagree, and if you think the show is garbage, that's fine. Like that's fine. Just don't try to make other people not watch it.
Yeah.
You know, let other people make their decisions. If you don't want to watch it, that's totally fine. It's silly to me that people will say things that are completely unfounded about it.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting because we both didn't realize until it was like on us that the show was coming out. It makes you kind of second guess Amazon's marketing strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think that they should be utilizing a product like today's sponsor,
Tether. We wanted to take a minute to talk about our sponsor, Tether, a Louisville-based software company. Our podcast has been using Tether's system, and here's what we know. Tether has organized our contacts, automated our email and text marketing, and made it way easier to post on social media due to their awesome social media planner. It does a whole lot of other customer service stuff and sales stuff as well. Tether is at a price point even small businesses like ours can afford. It's simple to use, and their customer support is awesome. Check them out at the link in our bio or the description of the podcast.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. We also have a Patreon page.
That's right.
It's $1 a month.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to support us, that's a great way to do it. $1 a month gets you access to, you can send us topics to talk about, a newsletter that we need to do this month. We'll mention you by first name on the podcast. Jeffrey, Freddie, Maggie, Stephanie, thank you so much for all your support over these last few months. You mean the world to us. You are the light of our lives, the apple of our eye. All right.
Books?
Do
you want to talk about it?
Dude, I've got, brother, do I want to talk about a book. Now, for those of you watching, watching the video version of the podcast. I do have the books in front of me here. I have tabbed these to within an inch of their life. Of course, I'm talking about the Stormlight Archive, the first 2.5 books of the Stormlight Archive. We're mostly going to talk about the first one tonight, but kind of talking about this part of the series as a whole. So it's The Way of Kings, Words of Radiance, and the novella, Edge Dancer. So basically, for those of you who don't know, The Way of Kings was written by Brandon Sanderson, or is currently being written by Brandon Sanderson. Book 5 comes out in December. And it is a, I'd say epic, high fantasy story with some of the best characters that I have ever read in my life. Steven, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Do you like when books have characters in them?
I don't know. I just read I just read The Road.
Yeah?
Which is like has nothing in it.
Okay.
That's great.
Okay. So let me ask you a follow-up question. Do you like when a book has relatable characters?
Man, I just read The Road, and sorry, I'm being completely difficult.
That's
yes,
okay.
I love it.
So, the Way of Kings specifically has a character named Kaladin. You've probably heard of him, maybe.
Yes.
In conversations. There was one thing that Kaladin...
Mostly with homeless people.
Yeah. What?
I was trying to think of a random group of people that wouldn't be talking about a Brandon Sanderson novel.
You should have said something about The Road. So, there's a character named Kaladin in The Way of Kings. He's also, he's in the whole series, obviously. Yes. But we were first introduced to him in The Way of Kings. He's a slave, but he's not like, we don't know why, because in this world you basically get sold into slavery for, making mistakes or doing bad things. And he's got a mark on his forehead, a brand, basically identifying that he's dangerous. So really, he kind of is resigned to the fact that his life is over. Like he is not a very hopeful individual. Definitely has some mental health stuff going on. Probably like PTSD, depression, all this stuff. And he is just one of the most interesting characters to read. There's another character also in the story named Dalinar. And a lot of times I think when we read fantasy or we read stuff that's meant to be this epic, epic saga, we don't get a lot of characters who are middle-aged.
Okay.
Or like middle-aged and above, who are the main characters in the story. Mm-hmm. And so Dalinar, he has a son. He's got 2 sons, actually, Adolin and Rinrain. I never know how to say this guy's name. It doesn't really matter. But they have such an interesting dynamic as well. Adolin is basically second in command of his father's war camp. Mm-hmm. So the way that the kingdom is structured is there's a king and then there's a bunch of high princes. So his dad, Dalinar, is a high prince. Mm-hmm. Dalinar starts to have these visions of a time before their time, where there were these things called the Knights Radiant. And they basically were, protectors, and they swore these oaths that, like to protect the people and to remember people who have been forgotten and all this stuff, all these really like honorable traits. Mm-hmm. But they are gone. They don't exist anymore. So he's having these visions, and essentially his whole thing is like his brother, who was the previous king, was, and this happens early on in the book, he was killed. And so he said something when he was dying that Dalinar has kept with him forever. And I'm not going to say what it is because it is actually kind of like an important plot point. But Dalinar, he begins to have these visions. When he has these visions, he like spasms, like he like freaks out, and people start to talk about how he's losing his mind. Mm-hmm. And so we see him try to navigate this really difficult scenario of like, man, I'm having these visions. I feel like they're real. These are real things that are happening. Nobody believes me. I'm in a position of power that if I start to break, I will be removed from.
Mhm.
I have to keep my family safe. I have to keep my soldiers safe. But I also have to figure out what is going on. And there's a book in the Way of Kings called, take a guess, maybe?
The Stormlight Archive.
The Way of Kings.
Oh, okay.
It's a book that's in the book that he is reading.
Okay.
So he is reading the book called The Way, of Kings.
Wow.
And it's like the Spider-Man meme. It's like Dalinar is reading it, and so am I. But sorry. But he basically, like, his whole thing is like trying to figure out why his brother said what he said. How does it relate to this? Then there's another character named Shallan.
Mhm.
And people don't really seem to like Shallan that much in later books, but I like her a lot in these 2 books. She's really interesting. She there's so many characters, dude. There are so many characters, and it's really difficult to like pinpoint something. So I'm just gonna say this: there are a lot of characters in this story, and they're all really, really good.
Mhm.
Kaladin is interesting because he is our first glimpse into the world that we're going towards.
Okay.
So he has this little thing that follows him around. It's called a Sprin.
Mhm.
And Sprin in this world, they show up at different times. So there's like Glory Sprin. When you do something that is worthy of glory, or you feel like you have done something and people are praising you, they show up.
Mhm.
And when the wind blows, they show up in the wind. They're Wind Sprin. Pain Sprin, when you get a cut, they are like in your cut. And so there's this whole thing where it's like, okay, well, what are Sprin?
Midichlorians.
You are honestly, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
No, not really, but kind of. But anyway, they're not really, sentient
Okay.
in the way that we would think that they are,
Mhm.
except for Syl, Kaladin's Sprin, who has followed him around. And so,
And Kaladin's the slave, yeah?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so Kaladin is the slave, and he, goes through this whole thing, and he is eventually sold to the army as a slave. For the army, one of the war camps, not Dalinar's war camp, another one, uses bridges when they go out to try to fight the enemy, which is they're called Parshindi. They killed the king. They killed the old king. And so they've been at war for this long time, but they have to cross, caverns and ravines. So Kaladin's sold into this slavery, and he's on one of the bridge crews. And the bridge crew really is, like the found family trope.
Mhm.
I love the found family trope.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite tropes in fantasy, and this is like maybe the best like I've seen it done. So basically, the whole time that Kaladin's there, you get to see him work through a lot of the stuff that has been holding him back.
Mhm.
He like I said, is obviously very like he's definitely got PTSD, depression, all this stuff. And it's such a nuanced look at it from Sanderson that it makes it, even though it's such a fantastical situation, it makes it feel relatable.
Mm.
Because basically his whole thing is like, well, everybody that I care about dies. Like, everybody that I have ever tried to help, something's gone wrong. I can't seem to do anything right. What is the point? You
Mhm.
know? And so there's times where he gets to like the like rock bottom.
Mhm.
But Syl, his Sprin, is always kind of spurring him on. Is like, well, what if you just tried again? Like, what if you just tried one more time? And there's a quote in the story that I think is so profound, and it's literally just, it's like at the beginning of a chapter. I'm gonna try to find it here. Okay, I've given up on finding it in the book, but I did write it down on my phone. So I think that this quote does a lot to kind of describe Kaladin, and his approach to what he's going through, but also just kind of the themes of this book in general, because it is a lot. I would say, and I don't want to be hyperbolic here, but it is really inspiring to read about people who, and we've talked about this a little bit before for other books, where it's like people who just are normal people thrust into extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah.
And a lot of books do that, and this one does it extremely well. Everybody who is a main character, they have something about them that is flawed,
Mhm.
or like a detriment to themselves.
Right.
Like Dalinar, he is so like hell bent on maintaining honor and maintaining like balance, like making sure that everybody around him is doing the best that they can because of a failure that he's had in his life. It's like he failed at one point really badly. And now he doesn't let anybody who's working him drink. He doesn't let them get drunk. He makes them wear their uniform all the time. And so he is like to the letter always. Like, and his son, like he resents him for that, and he thinks he's going crazy. So and Dalinar can't convince his son that his visions are real. Kaladin, you know, he's got his stuff, and then Shallan is a little bit harder to say without spoiling anything, actually. But this quote is, he didn't feel excited, but he did feel resolute, determined to fight again. And so this quote comes after Kaladin's probably at his lowest point.
Okay.
Like he's getting to this point where he's like, man, I just don't think that this is worth it anymore. And then some other stuff happens, and then he wakes up and he's like, all right, no, we're gonna fight today. And I think that is kind of his character's mantra a little bit. All right, we're gonna fight today. Like we're gonna and I think it's really cool to see that portrayed in a way that doesn't show weakness. Like it's not a weak thing. And the strength that it takes to be like, all right, no, we're gonna keep going.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I think that you would, if you can get past how long these books are, I think you would really enjoy it. And I'll tell you, the second book is so much better than the first one. The first book is a 5 out of 5 for me.
Okay.
The second one's at least 6 out of 5.
Nice.
Like it is the perfect book.
Okay.
There are so many little things that Sanderson does that make it to where you are just instantly hooked when you start the second book. It kind of feels like the first book is a prequel book, like a prologue, really.
Right.
Where it's like you just have to get through this like slog a little bit. Slow burn for sure. The first 200, 300 pages of it are you know, it's not exciting.
Yeah.
It's like there's stuff
a lot of information.
Yeah, there's stuff that you can see like, oh, that's gonna be cool, or like this is gonna be really cool when it happens, but just not a whole lot going on. But once you get past that, and honestly, dude, the last 200 pages of this book, or the first book specifically, and the second book even more so, with the first book, unbelievable, because you see the culmination of all of what each of these characters has been working towards internally, on their external environment. So like what's happening in the world is a direct reflection of the work that they've done internally. And it is so cool. And that happens in book 2 as well. Like there's so much growth in these characters. And I think that if you are somebody who, you know, likes a character driven story, likes a really interesting magic system, this is the top shelf of fantasy for that. And I'm currently reading book 3 right now. I'm like a chapter in, so I'm not super far in, but also I don't want to neglect mentioning the little novella. It's good. It's not as good as the other 2 books,
sure, but
there's one thing that I don't like about it. The main character, her name is Lift. She's meant to be a young girl, and she calls her powers her awesomeness all the time, and that gets a little old. But she also has a spren named Wendell, and the funniest character on the planet. He like is so reserved and like is so scared of everything, and she's like, you know, guns blazing all the time, and they have such a fun dynamic. And so I think the strength of Stormlight is the characters. Again, if you can get past the length of it, I think you'd really enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Read Mistborn first though.
Okay.
Your turn.
Tall order. But we'll see.
All 3 Mistborn books are less than those 2 books in pages.
I should hope so.
Yeah. So hey, just think about what it could be.
Yeah, there you go. That's the way to do it.
Has that helped? Has that convinced you?
No, I'm in now. I'm going to start it right now.
Thank goodness.
After I talk about a much shorter work, for those of you watching, you can see it here. Beren and Lúthien.
A classic. Some would say.
Are you a fan of John Ronald
Rule
Tolkien?
Yes.
Wow, me
you
too.
You know that I am.
So I would.
That's
like
why
to,
we started this show.
I would like to go ahead and load this silver bullet of a point in my gun.
Yeah. See, that's cheating because you know that I am going to read this book.
Here's the thing. As I was going through different possibilities of what to talk about today, I've read a lot of books this year. What makes the top tier of books stand out to me at this point are the ones that come back into my mind, whether that be for a character or a plot point or just something within it that was thought-provoking, like it stirred something up in me that sent me down a mental journey in one way or another, or there's just a concept in it that just keeps coming back to my head of like, oh, that's so cool, that's so interesting. And this is probably one of the most recent examples of something I read that it just keeps popping into my head. And so it's more of a, even though you were at some point going to read this book, it's more of a read this sooner rather than later.
Sure.
Because having gone into the Silmarillion and Children of Hurin and some of the extended lore type Tolkien mythology, this one I found to be the most accessible.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so I'll give a very brief overview at it. It's a very simple narrative love story. It's kind of like the love story that Middle-earth is built around, I would say. And it's interesting because it's actually the first Middle-earth story that Tolkien ever created. It was about his wife.
Side point, real quick. I've been to Tolkien's grave. And on the gravestone, it says Beren and his Lúthien. And
yeah. It's the first story that he ever created for it. So literally everything, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Silmarillion, all of it came from this original idea of this story, this love story. And it hits a lot of the like standard love story things. Like it's very much a love at first sight type of deal. He stumbles across her dancing in the forest and just immediately falls in love with her because she's so beautiful. She's kind of immediately taken with him. Of course, Dad doesn't like it. And so Dad sends him on a quest that he knows that he can't possibly fulfill in order to have the possibility of asking for her hand of marriage.
Remind me, the quest is to get the Silmarils, right?
To get a Silmaril.
A Silmaril from what's his face?
There are 3 different versions. But the kind of most final version is from Morgoth. So the big bad beyond Sauron.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't want to go like too far into the story because there are multiple endings, but across all of them, what I found to be the most compelling piece was that not only does he go and gives it his best shot, but then Lúthien actually breaks out of her father's house to go and help him, and then becomes like an integral part of the way the story plays out from there. So she very much just stops being a damsel in distress and becomes this very integral piece of the story and saves him in a way as well. And so it just gave such a cool, well-rounded view of love in a relationship that sometimes isn't there in like fairy tales and fantasy, in that it was very much equal and they were equal contributors to it and they were equally fighting for it. And I just thought that was such a cool aspect.
Yeah.
And it's really well written. You can tell that there's such a tremendous amount of respect for the Lúthien character and love for the Lúthien character, maybe even more so than the Beren character. And that was really interesting. I wasn't expecting that in a way. But yeah, so the thing that I think makes this seem somewhat inaccessible, at least it was for me, is that there are multiple versions within the volume. One is prose, the middle is kind of epic poetry, think Beowulf type style. And then the third kind of interchanges between the two, and it's more of like a cobbling together of different ideas over multiple different letters and drafts. Each one has some really great strengths, and I think if you go into it knowing that you're getting 3 versions of the same story, and that Christopher Tolkien will kind of go in and clean up and explain kind of where things ended up at the end, that helps.
Yeah. I do want to say, for those of you who don't know, everything after Lord of the Rings was stuff that was put together from J.R.R. Tolkien's writing by his son Christopher. In case that's not something that you were aware of.
Yes.
So none of this is all of this is written by J.R.R. Tolkien, but kind of pieced together by his son.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's also really, really short.
Yeah.
So it's shorter than Children of Hurin. It took me 2 sittings to get through all of it. The epic poem part is amazing. Like it pops. It really flows really nicely. I enjoyed that part probably the most.
Okay.
And yeah, there are just some lines out of this book that are absolute bangers. Like
I believe
they
that.
make you stop and reread it multiple times. It's like, whoa, did I just read that? That was crazy. I could go through this. I have so many things underlined from it.
I bet you do.
Because it's just, there's so many awesome, whether it's the descriptions of love, like how Beren looks at Lúthien, the things that Lúthien does to try to help Beren are described in different ways that were really, really compelling. Some lines that he says when they come back to Lúthien's dad. There's one in particular. I think it's in every single version. And it's just so killer.
Tolkien knew it was good.
Yeah, he left it in every version he did. He was like, "This is it right here." There's just so many wonderful lines. And I think depending on what you're reading of Tolkien, that's not always the case, right? Like certain, especially in the extended stuff. It's like, oh, this is a really cool concept. This is a really cool story. It's the broad strokes, right? But in this one,
it's the minutia.
It's just the quick little lines here and there. Like, oh, that was an amazing piece of dialogue. That was an amazing description. That was so cool.
It's interesting that you say it's the most accessible because I've always recommended that people read Children of Hurin before they read the Silmarillion. Would you say that? So as a bridge between Lord of the Rings to the Silmarillion, I've always said that reading Children of Hurin is better because it's more narrative than, Silmarillion's, for lack of a better term, academic. Like it's not necessarily like a book that you read and you're like sitting down and like, oh, this is really fun to read. Children of Hurin, I think, has that element of, okay, this is a story, a complete story with a little bit less of the, the Christopher Tolkien, like, additives.
Yeah.
Would you say that maybe instead of that, Beren and Lúthien is better
maybe
to read between?
Because it's so much more limited in scope.
Sure.
It's trying to do way less. Like the story is about them.
Children of Hurin is crazy.
Yes. It's expansive.
It's a tragedy as well. So tragic.
Yeah.
So sad.
This one will make you feel relatively good throughout most of it. It's fairly inspiring. Like, it has all those killer lines in it, all that kind of stuff. You can also connect to their love story and the characters enough that the minutia of the story fades into the background.
Sure.
But when you put it into the context of the Silmarillion, if you were to read Lord of the Rings, great, love it. Then you read Beren and Lúthien, you're like, okay, there's some, confusion here, whatever. But the story's really great. I really love their stuff. If you then went to Silmarillion and read that and got to the section of Beren and Lúthien, I think that everything before and after it would click into place in a different way.
Sure.
And in a much more cohesive way.
Mm.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, I would say it works as a bridge, especially kind of going back to our thing of like, if you are more character driven and if you are a more character driven individual when it comes to your stories, I would say it serves as a much better bridge than Children of Hurin, because you are completely engaged with these characters in Beren and Lúthien. Whereas in Children of Hurin, I think you're more engaged with the overall narrative.
The narrative. Yeah. That's good. That's good to know, because I've read the Silmarillion. I read all of Lord of the Rings and stuff. I read Children of Hurin, but I haven't read. I've read half of the Fall of Gondolin.
Mm-hmm.
I've not read Beren and Lúthien. I've not read the Fall of Numenor.
Mm-hmm.
Or any of like the history of Middle Earth stuff.
Yeah.
Yet. I would love to read all of that at some point, but it's just so much.
It's a lot.
There's a lot there.
Yeah.
Plus, you gotta buy them all, because I'm not gonna not have them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's myself.
Cool. Yeah, man. I mean, I'm gonna read it. Like, that.
Yeah.
I think that's all we got time for.
And speaking of time, it's the most valuable thing you've got, and we're thrilled that you spent roughly 55 minutes paying attention to us.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, we'll find out. Talking about these books we love. So if you wouldn't mind, like, subscribe, comment, share this on your social medias if you feel so compelled and inclined.
You can also find us on social media.
Yep.
Matthew Reads Books on TikTok and Instagram. Steven's Bookshelf.
Yep.
On Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
We're both on Medium. Steven is much more active on Medium than I am. I have a YouTube channel I don't use.
Yeah, there you go.
Yet.
Mm-hmm.
I might get back on it. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Now that I have, it's crazy. I was gonna say now I have more free time. It's so weird to me that I have more free time now I'm in school and have a job than when I was unemployed and just doing 2 shows.
Yeah.
So funny to me.
Theater life, baby.
Oh yeah, can't beat it. Might as well join it.
Might as well.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I just want to let you know. Also, we also have bookshop.org storefronts. Yes. If you want to purchase any of these books, we will remember to put them in the description this time.
Mm-hmm.
Beep boop boop. That was me remembering.
Yep.
And if you buy them from bookshop.org, you can support a local bookshop of your choosing, and we also get a kickback, which is super helpful. So if you don't mind, purchasing through those links, if you give them a shot, that would be sick.
And with that, I think it's time to say, now this
is podcasting.